Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Worth Your Time, Worth Your Money, an ongoing segment where I look at the opening hours of new and upcoming games to just give you a soft verdict. You know, it's a 10-minute video, kind of short and punchy, give you the broad strokes and then you can make up your own mind. So today, we're talking about Firefighting Simulator Ignite, which I kind of slept on a little bit. The release date has it as 10th of September, so probably a month behind, but still new-ish. And the main reason I came back to this, because it's been sitting in my library, unfortunately got overlooked. You can't cover everything, sadly, but it's published by Astragon Entertainment, who we actually covered Seafarer the Ship Sim. And if you're not across it, I've been doing split content as well. So we're doing these punchy little videos that you probably found through YouTube search, but I'm also doing ongoing gameplay to go a bit deeper than the initial impressions. And so Seafarer is something we've been playing, and it's a ship simulator. You're loading and unloading cargo and that sort of thing. If you're young and Adderall filled, you're probably not into it, but if you're a bit of an old boring boy like me, it's actually surprisingly a really cool game. Anyway, so the publisher for them is Astragon, who also published this. So on the back of that pedigree, I've gone back to check out Firefighter Simulator. And look, I don't want to bury the lead too early. Suffice to say, I think this is actually a really good game. I'm very, very impressed with a lot about it. It is still, you know, that indie AA jank space, so they're going for more hyper-realism, which I caution against often, just because your budget's never going to be enough, right? And it's going to age horribly, but that's almost the love and the jank of lower budget games, right? But the impressive part is that they actually have a very robust fire simulation under the hood. The game hasn't gone to much length to explain how it works, but just by poking and prodding it and playing it for a few hours, I've gotten to understand bits and pieces of it, and it's essentially like I said, it's a systems-based fire model that will basically behave like a living creature, which is what fire does in real life if you've ever had any rudimentary firefighting experience. So yes, it's good. I'm impressed. I love systems-based games, and usually that's more in a strategic or economy model type things, or AI and the way it behaves. So it's very, very fascinating to see what is ultimately, at first blush, a four-player co-op, you know, Left 4 Dead, Vermintide-like, in that space. That sort of crowd's going to play it. And yet the antagonistic component is this fire that's constantly trying to propagate and react to the way that you behave. And it's just all very, very fascinating and very well executed. It's probably worth pointing out that the developer is not Astragon. So the Seafarer example I gave was them developing and publishing, which is a bit rarer. That must have been their big project. They are more of a publishing house by the look of it these days. But Wellenbauer seems to be the name of the dev in this instance. And checking up briefly, they've done Construction Simulator before. I haven't played it, but I might actually look into it now. Again, tumbling on the back of pedigree, because I'm enjoying this thread that I'm pulling on and what these games have to show. So a lot of the broad stroke stuff is pretty intuitive, right? At first blush, you're a firefighter, you work in a firehouse, and you know, if you just want to dot point the way that missions are rolled out, there is a tutorial phase that you get through, and they get through the basics. There's a bit of mini gaming and all that sort of stuff, but once you're through that, on the sort of meta construction level, you go to a board in the base or the fire station or whatever you want to call it, and it will have main missions that will unlock, you know, you get XP and ranks and all that sort of stuff. So there's a whole bunch of mechanics, trucks, items, things that I haven't even gotten near yet that will unlock with progress. But there's also a side mission generator. I don't know what else to describe. It says it quite explicitly that the side missions are just kind of randomly shuffled together. And funnily enough, part of my time and what really consolidated and impressed me was when I jumped into said side mission. It was just some random suburban household, and it was an electrical fire, which is not something I'd encountered at that point, which contains its own sort of loop as well, in that whatever is the source of the fire, so the game obviously works it all out in real time and generates it to a point, the source can reignite, and so isolating the source is very helpful, so you can sort of give it, you know, less space to be a fire. But also there's a breaker box component that was introduced with this fire. So You have to search around the outside of the house, you have to search storage areas and try and find the circuit breaker to isolate and turn off whatever's causing the electrical fire. Like, you can turn off lights and that manually with switches, but in this instance it was like a faulty power point. The only way to stop that was by isolating the breaker. This is incredible, it's really cool. But look, I have gotten ahead of myself. That's the meta gameplay, which is fairly basic. Main missions, pushing forward and introducing new tech. Secondary missions that infinitely just create interesting scenarios that will take up a chunk of your time. I spent a full half hour on that fire because it just kept getting out of control and trying to zone it and control it. I don't want to necessarily say that your AI partners are bad. They seem all right, but it's one of those things that it is something that needs to be strategically tackled from angles and opening up ventilation tunnels or whatever you want to call it, pass-throughs. But look, we'll come back and let's break down an encounter, I suppose. Ultimately, you get called out to the fire. You can choose to teleport straight there, or you can roll out. You can also roll back at the end of a fire, which is a bit more boring, but you know, it's a pretty cool debrief. Honestly, if a bunch of you and the boys just beat an overwhelming half an hour long fire, I can't see the harm in driving home for 2 minutes, you know, just talking shit in the back of the truck. It's a kind of cool and also bizarre in a way that this game was, like I said, a very robust fire model, behavioral system. I don't know what else to call it. But they've also got like a full city that you can drive your truck through from point A to point B. And there's a bit of a time trial to it, you know, put on your sirens, try not to crash, that sort of thing. Get a gold medal getting there in time. But once you get there, it's up to you. Dissect it as best as you can with your understanding and the experience that you've learned and what the game's shown you. The AI partners are by default on pretty aggressive autonomous mode, which is good because, you know, setting up the hydrant to the truck and then the truck to the attack lines, and then those in turn have nozzles. It's cool watching them all run away and do their own things. You've got sections of the truck that you can open up with Halligan bars, which are essentially big giant bloody pry bars for opening doors and front doors and things like that, inaccessible areas. You've got fire axes and another component. There will be parts of walls that are sort of delineated by cracks in the wall and that you can hack them open for, you know, easier access because fire obviously can block areas. But also, the game made an emphasis about the idea of making, you know, corridors for ventilation. You can open up windows. And while it hasn't explicitly explained the ins and outs of it, I watched and tested in real time, you know, opening up windows and watching the smoke, because the smoke seems to settle as well because there's people that you can rescue and they obviously get inhalation. And you can see it. You can see the separation boundary of the CO2 smoke layer rising and falling. And so I could see the smoke interacting with the window as soon as I opened it up, flying out. And also a nearby room aggressively having fire lick out and try and get out of that room in some gameplay mechanic style, interacting with and eating up the oxygen that I'd introduced to the environment. The game also has little tool tips and all that, and it's talked about backdrafts being a gameplay mechanic with like a thrumming throb, and so I'm really excited to see that. I haven't actually come up against it in my short time with this game already. Couple that with the different fire types, different truck types. I found like foam as an option on my current truck, but I haven't necessarily found a reason to use it. There's different, you know, fire methods. You can just go straight hose, you can go mist, and I found like mist was helpful when you were sort of trying to just beat back the flame indiscriminately. You don't really have a point that you're trying to deal with because it's overwhelming. It's intimidating in the same way that a fire is and should be, that you open up this bedroom door and it is just flame. You know, tell me, Scarlet, point to the wall where the flame is coming from. No. Answer not found. Start spraying water in there in a mist until maybe you get a little bit of progress and you can figure out where to beat it back specifically from. So yeah, I'm kind of raving about this because I'm kind of impressed. I wasn't expecting it to be this good. So if you found this interesting, there will be more footage on the channel. In fact, it might be going up relatively close to this video. I'm still working out my method, but at the moment we're doing split content, right? I'm doing these short punchy videos to give you an overview of a game because a lot of people don't want their time wasted. I understand it. Inversely, maybe you want to see it in action. Maybe you want my credentials and receipts. I'm happy to provide them and do a longer playthrough as possible popularity dictates, we can push it out further and further. So stick around on the channel for a little bit and we'll actually have some gameplay footage going up. I've gone back to the developer and tried to see if I can get some more keys as well, because maybe we'll stand up a multiplayer session, because it is one of those things trying to, you know, you cover this front door. All right, you smash open this door and look for survivors, because, you know, there is a timer. There's a doom timer. They can die. I've had people die and I haven't been able to get to them in time. All right, you smash open this wall to give us another avenue to fight the fire from another angle. All right, you come up through the second floor and bring the hose with you and work that. Like, this has the real recipe and makings for a very cool multiplayer experience. And I've chipped at some firefighter games over the years, and a lot of the time they do go for cartoon kind of humor, I suppose. Whereas this is going for, I think, arguably exactly what someone attracted to this type of game would want, which is a robust fire simulation that is no snooze, and if you don't check it properly, it will win, and giving you the tools to solve the puzzle in essentially procedural missions that work very, very well. Anyway, I don't need to waffle. I've made my point. Stick around for more footage. Team might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.